to normal. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Leisha Van Nieuwenhove. I'm the publisher and editor of the Uxbridge Cosmos, which is the host for this evening's festivities forum. I appreciate all of you wearing your masks. I really do. My blood pressure is through the roof at the moment, and I'm a little bit shaky. It's a fine line, and I appreciate that. I don't like wearing this any more than you do, I'm sure, and I'm a little bit preaching to the choir, but in a sense, this is my party, and if I wanted you all to wear purple trousers and yellow t-shirts, I could have. And if you didn't, there you go. Anyway, moving on. I'm asking you to turn off cell phones if you can. I have to cross my fingers and remember to turn off mine when I go to the back. If you need to leave, if you could just kind of head to the back and then scoot out through the exit at the front there, that would be terrific, just to not disrupt anything. The washrooms are open at the back, so if you need to, that's where you need to go. We are missing some people, but Ted, do you want to tackle what's going on with that? You shall. So I am just going to turn everything over to our most capable moderator, Ted Barris. Thank you.
Moderator, she got right. Capable, we'll figure out. We'll see. Thank you very much. Welcome. These, I'm sure, for our candidates are old hat doing these debates and discussions and dealing with the issues. For us, we get to see them frequently when in the street and when they're active in their roles for their parties and so on, but not as frequently as or not as often as we'd like, and this is an opportunity for us to get to know them and understand their stand on issues. My name is Ted Barris. I'm a resident of this town since the earth was cooling, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very active in the Uxbridge Cosmos, have been writing for all the years that we've been publishing, that Leisha has been publishing. Conrad, the original publisher of the Cosmos, is here. Where are you, Conrad? There he is, and Lisa. And I want to make sure that we thank Larry for his continuing support of us. Stage One Rentals equipment. I think Larry has been here as many times doing these events as I have, and that's close to 25 or 30 years of doing that. So Larry, you are so committed. We thank you so much for that commitment. I think, I think if you were a fly on the wall of most breakfast or dinner table, back porch, or Zoom conversations going on around our community, you'd probably hear typical street discussion about skyrocketing prices of gas and other commodities, the Leafs' chances of getting through to first round of the playoffs, and of course the residual impact of COVID, the pandemic. And we often do that. I'm one of those fortunate grandparents who has both daughters, sons-in-law, and all 6 grandkids living within about 5 blocks of me in this town. So we get together, even during the pandemic, we got together in the backyard and talked, the kids and I, and my 2 daughters who are grown adults and very active and have emailed both these gentlemen, I think, in the course of the election campaign. They have reminded me, Dad, when you're talking about all the troubles that are going on in your community, remember there are no bombs falling on your head. So it's only a quick glance at the newspapers and the media, social media, to understand the fragility of life in places such as Kyiv and Mariupol and Odessa. And it puts everything into perspective when we recognize how fortunate we are to have the freedom to do this tonight. That's why for me, nights such as this one are so important. The healthiest democracies are participatory democracies. And this provincial election is as much an expression of that healthy aspect of our democracy as anything, because we're participating in the process of electing people who speak for us. So give yourselves for being here, and those of you who are watching us at home on Zoom or whatever the platform is tonight, give yourselves a pat on the back and recognize that the candidates deserve that attention and pat on the back as well. To snub those who would say that Ontarians and Canadians take their freedoms for granted. We do not. As in the past, it's the intention and the hope of the Cosmos that the candidates who are present and the constituents who are here and at home can benefit from an exchange of information about the key issues that each of the candidates feels will decide the seat. The premise, of course, is that democracy is best served by an informed electorate. And so we have attempted to bring together all the candidates. You can see that they're not all here. There are a number of reasons that have made this difficult, not the least of which some of you found at the door. However, we're grateful that Peter and Khalid have made it, and that Ibrahim Daniel from the Liberal Party is on his way. There was another event in Pickering that he's just leaving and will join us shortly to become part of the process. But to be fair to all the candidates who I found on the site, I should name them all. In addition to Peter Bethlen-Falvey, representing the Progressive Conservative Party here tonight. You can applaud. And Khalid Ahmed, representing the New Democratic Party of Ontario. There is another candidate who's running as an independent named Abir Dabour. Have either of you run into him in the course of the election? Okay, so he's not coming this evening. Natalia Dubowski is representing the Ontario Moderate Party. We had hoped she would be here, but not the case. Lisa Robinson was invited, representing the Ontario Party. Julia Rodinone of the, am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it Rodinone? Of the Green Party, sends profound regrets. Unforeseen circumstances did not allow her to be here tonight. She otherwise would have been. Another independent running in the election is Hassan Syed, and Elizabeth Tallis was supposed to join us from the New Blue Party, but that's not the case either. So we will move along to use the format that we've used many times in these forums, and that is we invite the candidates to give us an introductory statement or two about the election and their sense of what the issues that are meaningful and important to them are. We've decided we would normally draw names from a hat, but since there are only two, we'll go alphabetically. And then when we have our third candidate arrive, Mr. Daniel, we'll invite him to do the same. Then we will, the media are here tonight to offer some questions, the Cosmos and the Standard. We thank you for coming. And we will as well invite people from the floor to offer questions. I've got questions that Leisha has gathered from some of our readers to contribute through the evening as well, and we'll go as long as those questions seem to be inspiring great conversation and discussion, and when it begins to peter out, we'll invite the candidates to do wrap-up statements, and we'll be out of here before 9 o'clock. How's that? In time to catch the last period of the fifth game of the playoffs, wherever they are happening and whomever you're supporting. Okay? So, to get things started, I will invite Khalid to be the first speaker to offer his opening statements. You can either do it from there or here, whichever you feel most comfortable using.
I can do it from here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. My name is Khalid Ahmed, and I'm your Ontario NDP candidate for Pickering Uxbridge. I'm just going to fix this. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, so my name is Khalid Ahmed, the Ontario NDP candidate for the beautiful riding of Pickering Uxbridge. I grew up in this riding, went to high school here. Now I'm raising my family. Living here for over a decade, I got to see firsthand the issues that we are facing. Start off with my educational background. I did social service worked for John Howard Society of Toronto, which is for the PAR program, Partner Assault Rehabilitation Program, helping adults to have a healthy and nonviolent relationship. I also worked for the Thorncliffe Park Neighborhood Youth Center, helping the youth be involved in community and sport events. And throughout my life, I have been an advocate for seniors and for students. Now, currently, I work in a financial sector, helping people make financial decisions and have better life. These are two different approaches with the same goal, making lives better. And the government can do the same thing, which is why I'm running. I'm running because the Ontario NDP's platform, and once we govern, we're going to make affordability possible. We're going to make affordable housing, over 1.5 million houses in the next 10 years. We're going to make sure that hydro bills are lower. We're going to make sure there is a fair minimum wage, and people have paid sick days, dental care, and vision care. We're going to ensure that our healthcare system is properly funded. For far too long, our healthcare system is underfunded. It's time government takes some action. We want to make sure seniors could live with dignity. What happened during this pandemic in Orchard Villa is not acceptable. Seniors were left in spoiled diapers for days, given expired medication, left dehydrated. This will not happen under our NDP government. We will make sure that profit is out of the long-term care, and care is back in the long-term care. We're going to make sure that we invest in the next generation, invest in education, hire more teachers, and stop the ballooning class sizes. It is so unfortunate in a province as rich as ours, there are classrooms without proper heating systems, without ACs in the summer. I cannot imagine studying in those conditions. There is more than $12.8 billion in our education, in our schools that, in repairs that's pending. And no one has done anything about it. We need government that will take action to help the next generation.
About a minute.
So once again, thank you for coming here. We keep on switching between the Liberals and Conservative. It's time we elect a government that actually cares for you, that is strong, that is ready, and that will be working for you. And I truly believe NDP is the only party that will make that possible. Affordability, ensure seniors live with dignity, have proper healthcare systems. Grab Bill 124 now. And with the NDP government, all of that is possible. So on June 2nd, I am asking for your support for making a brighter future for Ontario. Thank you.
Thanks, Carter. Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you to Khaled Ahmed. I know it takes a lot to put your name on the ballot, so thank you for joining us tonight, and to my other candidates who are not here. Thank you to Uxbridge Cosmos for sponsoring the event tonight. This is an important part of democracy, and so thank you to the whole organization, and finally Ted Barris for moderating tonight. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
You know, the last 4 years has been the honor of my life to represent all the constituents of Pickering Uxbridge, or as I like to say when I'm up here, Uxbridge Pickering. It is a privilege to be able to have that seat, and I've taken that privilege very seriously over 4 years. And we've done a lot together. Starting with in Uxbridge, finally getting approval and funding for our brand new hospital in Uxbridge. This is, I remember when I was first taken through the basement and shown all the wires in the boiler room, and actually Bruce Garrett and others took me through Reachview, and I saw the state of repair for the Reachview facility, the long-term care facility. And it takes, not talking about it for 15 years, which the previous government did, but actually doing something, and we've announced as well that we're going to build a brand new long-term care facility right beside the new hospital, 192 modern beds as a campus of care right by the Uxbridge new hospital. But there's so much more that we're going to have to do together, and we've got a lot more to do. First off, our party is going to rebuild Ontario's economy. After 2 years through the pandemic, it's time to focus on bringing good jobs and bigger paychecks back to Ontario, and we're going to get that job done. Secondly, we're supporting workers. We have a labor shortage right across the province, and we need good skilled trade jobs. We need jobs right across Ontario. We're providing the funding for worker development, for skilled trades, destigmatizing skilled trades, doing retraining and training. It's an important part of our plan. Thirdly, we're going to build things. We've been building things. We're going to continue to build things. We're going to build highways. We're going to build subways. We're building hospitals. We're building long-term care. We're building broadband and internet. We're building housing right across this province, because it's time for the province to invest in its infrastructure. 200,000 people a year come to Ontario. They want to buy a home. They want to have, in some cases, take the subway. In some cases, they can't take public transit, drive to where they're going. It's very important that we continue to build infrastructure. Fourthly, we're going to keep costs down. We're trying to help people. Everything's getting tougher day to day. That's why we are reducing the gas price by 5.7 cents a liter starting on July 1st. Taking off the gas tax. That's going to be there for 6 months. We took off the tolls of 412 and 418. The only tolls in all of Ontario put on were in Durham, penalizing the people of Durham. We're going to keep going on bringing costs down. And finally, a plan to stay open. That's why we are building hospitals. Increase the hospital budget for building from 30 billion to 40 billion. We're going to build more beds. We're going to hire more nurses, more personal support workers. We're going to do more for home care, better and more home care. So we're going to get it done. We're getting it done. I ask for your support on June 2nd. And please mark the ballot for Peter Bethenfalvey. I very much appreciate your support, and I'll work hard for another 4 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Going to go to the media in a moment, but I thought I would start with a question that I think would be fair is the elephant in the room, and that's the pandemic. And I think it's fair to say that it has changed our perspective of all forms of healthcare and science and analysis and interpretation and policy and function and delivery. But I thought I'd ask you to start because you're talking about, in your case, Khalid, the importance of long-term care, and Peter, the hub that you're talking about, how important these are. How has the pandemic changed your sense and your stance, both as an individual and a party, as to how we would face the next one when it happens, because we know it will? And I mean, in a sense of in your own fiber, how it's changed your sense of what we can and can't do, and how we have to address this when that comes. Either of you can begin. I'll give you each a few minutes to talk about this, because I think it's important. You can do it right from there, Colin.
Yeah, so absolutely. Thank you for the question. It is important. Can you guys hear me? Let me pull this closer. Pandemic has changed our lives. The issue is that our healthcare system was already on its knees. We have been talking about hobby medicine. Not only this election, the election before this and the one before this. We knew we were short-staffed in our hospitals. We knew that we were short of doctors, and we knew that we needed to do something about it. The government before this and this government dragged their feet to address these issues. And just calling them heroes is not going to cut it. We need to ensure that nurses are happy and not leaving the province. With Bill 124, that doesn't cut it. And the pandemic really opened eyes to see how, like I said, the pandemic didn't cause what happened in Orchard Villa. It just exposed it, how bad our system was. And that's what bothers me. It bothers me that the government has been dragging their feet on taking real action. So we are going to ensure that we hire 30,000 nurses. We're going to make sure that, yes, we are making hospital, but not only empty beds with staff in them. Beds are not going to cut it. We're going to ensure that seniors could live in their house with dignity, and if they have to go to long-term care, they are taken care properly. We're going to ensure that these PSWs that are working have paid sick days, dental care, and vision care. These are things that attract workers, and these are good jobs that we cannot lose. We cannot privatize our healthcare system. We are so proud of it. We just need to keep on building on it, and the NDP government will get it done.
Thanks, Khalid. Peter?
Yeah, thank you. I think I agree a lot with Khalid about the 15 years that the Liberal government had to fix our healthcare system. Now, mind you, a number of years supported by the NDP, particularly 2011, 2014 with the minority. And let me tell you some of the things we inherited. In Pickering, 0 new long-term care beds were built from 2011 to 2018. In Ajax, 0 long-term care beds were built from 2011 to 2018. We have a waiting, at that time when we inherited and took power in 2018, there was a 38,000 person waiting list. It's just math. So we need to do things, and that's why I talked about infrastructure, not talking about things, but actually getting things done. I had the privilege of cutting the ribbon at the new Lake Ridge Gardens facility down by the Ajax Pickering Hospital. That first shovel, Doug Ford said, we got to build, we're in a pandemic, we need more modern beds. And so that first shovel went in the ground in January of 2021, and I cut the ribbon about two months ago, for 320 modern beds right beside the Ajax Pickering Hospital, just like here in Uxbridge, a campus of care. Now, you have to put nurses and personal support workers, and we've already started accepting residents so that the staffing is there, because we made a commitment over almost a year and a half ago to hire 27,000 new nurses and personal support workers in long-term care facilities. That's happening. We made a commitment to hire 8,600 new nurses. Now, when you're not building long-term care facilities, when you're not building hospitals, like the previous government, then you don't need nurses, you don't need personal support workers. And they've done great work, and we continue to support them. Specifically, putting medical schools so we can have more in the college and university system, a new medical school in Scarborough, a new medical school in Brampton, a new medical school in Northern Ontario. That's getting it done. We're also granting degrees in 3 years versus 4 years for PSWs and for nurses. So building the infrastructure, hiring people, and then of course retaining and training and retention. And that's why we put in place a $5,000 retention bonus for nurses.
Okay, but let me. You both addressed the question fairly and adequately. But what about all governments in this country, federal, provincial, and municipal, threw the Connaught Labs under the bus years ago? What about vaccines? I mean, it's great to have all these follow-ups and repair after the damage is done. How do we prevent it?
Can I go?
And neither of you's addressed that. And I realize it's more often a federal concern, but Toronto is where Connaught Labs were.
So thank you, Ted, for pointing that out. And that did develop over decades and started in the 80s when Connaught was no longer a Canadian company. What we learned in the pandemic, and that was the basis for your question, we learned many, many things. One of the things that we learned is that we relied on PPE and N95 masks from other jurisdictions. And when you hit a pandemic, everyone scrambles to supply their own citizens. So now today, 90% of our PPE and our critical supplies are made in Canada or Ontario. For example, the N95 masks, we were one tweet away from not getting them across the border, south of the border to Canada. We learned that we've got to have a critical supply here in Ontario. That's why 3M and the Government of Ontario partnered to build a new N95 mask facility in Brockville. Just one example. But like now 90% being reliant here. We also invested with Sanofi to be able to develop flu vaccines here in Ontario. We have more to do. Obviously, Moderna is going into Montreal, so more vaccine production capabilities in Canada. And let me say one other thing, Ted. You know what? One of the key things that I think is a good learning through the pandemic is that when you work together, municipalities, provinces, and the federal government, that's what people want. They want us to work together for a common good. That long-term care facility that we built in 13 months usually takes 7 or 8 years. We did in partnership with the municipality. When you work together, you can get more done. And so that's one of the learnings.
Khalid?
Absolutely. I mean, our government will be learning from the past and moving the province forward. There was a short of PPE in the hospital, and I think what the current government fails to understand is workers are not happy. So today, Mr. Peter, if you're committing to reappealing Bill 124, and it just shows how out of touch the government is with the people. I've been knocking on doors. I've been talking to nurses. My wife is a nurse herself. We have spoken with ONA, RNO, and they all have been saying that Bill 124 needs to be scrapped. Just making just beds and hospital is not going to solve the problems. We need to make sure our workers are happy. We need to learn from the mistakes, and we need to make sure that if another pandemic was hit, we are ready. We need to make sure that the province is leading in making PPE, making vaccines, and that's what we are offering. We're going to move the province forward. And with the NDP government, we definitely will do that.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to the media now for some questions. Roger and Dan.
And speaking on the pandemic, one of the sectors that was hit during the pandemic was the local tourism sector. I guess So what is your government's plan to help support and rebuild that sector going forward?
Sure. I'll start. One of the things, thank you for that question, Daniel. There's no question our economy was hard hit through the pandemic, and our tourism in particular was one area that was hard hit. One of the things that we did in our budget last year was put together a staycation tax credit, a credit that encourages people to travel in this beautiful province, and so families can get up to $400 when they stay in an accommodation in Ontario. That not only helps the accommodation industry, but it also helps when they stay in Ontario and travel through this beautiful province, that they'll be doing other things that will support the many businesses that support the tourism sector. We also provided a tourism grant to businesses affected, and as well as a tourism recovery program. Going forward, we heard from business, we heard from tourism, what they really wanted. They wanted a plan to stay open. These opens and shutting of the economy and restrictions are very tough on people. We know that. And so that's why the budget that I was proud to table a couple of weeks ago has a very clear plan and vision to stay open, meaning those investments in the hospitals, in the nurses, in the PSWs, in labor, in having more home care. And I'll give you an example. I put over $1 billion for more home care. $500 million in the fall economic statement, $1.5 billion. We need to do more, better home care, because people want to age in their homes longer. So there's many things that we're doing to make sure that we can stay open, we can provide the health care, and support our local businesses right across this great province.
Absolutely. Our government will be giving $1,000 for people that stay in Ontario, visit locally, eat locally, and spend their time. We also want to make sure that we protect our greenbelt and just make sure that there are provincial parks and people could enjoy locally. The pandemic has been really hard. People cannot travel or weren't able to travel out of the country, so we need to make sure that we're supporting local businesses. We are giving $1,000 in tax credit to people that shop locally, eat locally. We will be also helping small businesses, giving them grants in 2022 and 2023. The current grant system that we had in place, it was a very lengthy process. People were confused, businesses were confused, and a lot of them were not eligible. There were people out of province that were getting these grants. We want to ensure that our tax dollars are spent wisely and it goes to businesses here in Ontario and not elsewhere. So we will have an easier process, a process that will work so business can benefit. There will be a process that will work so the tourist industry is not impacted.
If I may, I'd like to pick up on Dan's question. You're addressing staycations.
Yes.
People staying here. What about the international reputation we have or had to attract tourists? How do you get that back?
I mean, we have to promote Ontario. We are an amazing province. We have a lot of greenery. We have to make sure that people could come here and enjoy in Ontario and in Canada. So we have to work and talk with businesses and stakeholders how we could make it possible and what needs to be addressed to ensure that we could have people attract tourism from outside. We have an amazing platform on all art and culture. And yes, we'll be working with stakeholders and ensuring that business are open and people are attracted to them.
Well, we of course, you've heard the Premier promote Ontario. He's been down to the U.S. Numerous times promoting Ontario. I mean, 18...
He hasn't come to any Lucy Maud Montgomery events that I'm aware of.
I think he's got that on his agenda now.
I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but I mean, it's important, I think, for communities such as ours to get the reputation internationally that we require to build that base back. And I don't see it happening for a long time because of fear. And that's what Dan's question's about, is the fear of not going back to those places because of what you might pick up or end up suffering from. It's a psychological thing.
Well,
money doesn't necessarily isn't the answer, is what I'm saying.
yeah, no, and if I could pick up on that, that's why the plan to stay open is so critical. We've been through a heck of a lot over 2 years. Everybody has been through 15 million people in this province. We want to move forward. People want hope, they want aspirations. That's why investing, we have to go back and know that our healthcare system, often, even with just flu season, was at the brink. And so investing in those beds, we've added 3,000 new beds on top of the 15,000 we've had. We made a commitment to build 31,000, already in the planning stages, long-term care beds. I mentioned the 611 that were built in 7 years. We have a plan for 31,000 new beds, 28,000 upgraded beds. As I mentioned, hiring more nurses, more personal support workers, more specialists. These are the ways that we are going to be able to stay open, invest in our healthcare, and it's really looking forward. We have an aging population, and I mentioned home and community care. People more and more want to live at home longer. And so providing the supports is critical. I think all these things will make Ontario a jurisdiction where people will feel safe to come to Ontario. And I think nothing better than, in fact, if we had had this debate last night, I'm not sure anyone would have been here because you would have been watching the Toronto Maple Leafs. And with Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup this year, I think we're going to bring a lot more people to Ontario.
I think we may have our third candidate arriving. Thank you. Welcome. Please join us and make yourself comfortable. Mr. Daniel, is it correct? Yeah. Good. Daniel. Okay. We're going to let you get settled, and in a moment I'm going to invite you, as was the protocol with the other candidates, to offer your opening remarks as you get your papers ready. But while you're doing that, we'll continue with media questions that are happening at the moment and turn things over to Roger for a question for the candidates.
Thanks, Ted. Gentlemen, welcome, sir. A little late, but we'll try and catch you up. You're talking about vacations and the economy, and you're talking about you've listened to the tourism people, you've listened to businesses. I would suggest there's a great many people that vacations is the last thing on their mind right now. We have people in this wonderful little community of Uxbridge living in cars. The food bank, the clientele is increasing by the month. We have people in town who have lived here all their lives are now afraid that they're going to have to move because they can't afford to keep their house. We have other people who just can't afford what they're getting. So vacations doesn't come into it. They need a place to live, they need food to eat, and they need a place to, they need to get to work without it costing an arm and a leg. What are your parties going to do for Joe Average?
Thank you for the question. I know affordability is off the roof, and we need to make life more affordable. We have been, like I said, these issues have been there for a really long time, and it seems like the government is just not addressing it. We need to reduce hydro bills. We need to ensure that gas prices are lower. So we're going to work with the Ontario Board of Energy to make sure they regulate gas prices. We're going to make sure that postal code discrimination for insurance company doesn't happen, which will reduce insurance by 40%. I spoke about minimum wage increasing. Minimum wage, the current government scrapped it when they took office, increasing the minimum wage. We don't need that. Cost of living is skyrocketing. We need to ensure that, we talked about housing, that there's affordable housing. That's why we are making 1.5 million houses. With that, 260,000 will be social assistance housing. There will be co-op housing in those. We're going to ensure that people can actually afford housing. Currently, me and my wife work, and we still are not able to purchase a house. And it's scary for the next generation. Things have changed a lot. But our minimum wage is still the same. We need to make sure that we have dental care and eye care. And so families are saving thousands of dollars because they could actually go to a dentist. We want to make sure that they have access to mental health services. So when they go in for therapy, they could use their OHIP card and not their credit card. These are the things that matter. These are the things that we're fighting for. These are the things that we will get done.
Thanks, Khalid. We'll get to you in a second. Peter?
Sure. And Roger, I think that was an excellent question. You know, the cost of everything seems to be going up, and it's hit seniors, others on low income, the hardest, most vulnerable in society. You know, our government has done a number of things. One is we put in $3 billion since 2020 for affordable housing and for homelessness and shelters and supportive housing. We'll continue to do that. Number two, you know, if I look back at some of the costs that have gone up, you know, the hydro costs that my colleague here mentioned, you know, it's under the previous government that they went through the roof, and in part supported by the NDP. You know, we've been able to rein in those costs. The tolls on the 412, 418 that I mentioned, the only place in Ontario was in Durham. The license plate stickers for those who have a car, they were put up, in fact, by the Minister of Transportation at the time, Stephen Del Duca. So what are we doing to help bring costs down? Well, first off, we will be dropping the gas tax portion of the cost of gas at the pumps by 5.7 cents a litre starting July 1st for 6 months. You know, we've also increased the minimum wage to $15, and it will be increased again on October 1st to $15.50. Another thing that I introduced in the budget 2 weeks ago was a tax rebate for anyone making up to $50,000, so that they would pay less tax through a tax rebate. That will help up to 1.1 million workers in this province get $300 more in their pockets. That's on top of what we announced in the beginning with the low individual and family tax credit. So we're working on keeping costs down, and we're rebuilding Ontario's economy so that we can get good jobs and bigger paychecks into the province.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Abraham, we have gone through the process of allowing inviting the candidates to offer introductory statements, and I would offer you that time now if you'd prefer, or would you like to address the issue at hand on housing and homelessness? It's up to you, and I apologize throwing all this at you as you came in the door, but we want to make sure that you get your fair share of time.
Yeah, first of all, I really feel sorry, but the problem, our leader and the next Premier of Ontario, Stephen Del Duca, was in Durham, and he was visiting the winning riding of Ajax.
Use the microphone a little bit closer, please.
And he was,
Thank you.
he was visiting the winning riding of Ajax in Durham. That was the reason I had to be there. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Don't worry.
I'll just read my statement.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Please do.
Fellow Ontarians, I'm indeed honored to be here representing the Ontario Liberal Party in Uxbridge. Your presence here is an indication that the future of Ontario matters to you. While all elections are important as they define our immediate future, it is tough to dispute that this election, following the outbreak of COVID-19, is the most important in our lifetime. Never in the recent history has a devastating health crisis changed our lives and health, our economies and jobs, and our dreams and families. The reason we are at this pivotal time in the history is because you, the voter, must decide where we go from here and how. No government had it easy. On every corner of this earth, the challenge of responding to the crisis was a top priority. Things were no different here. Using MZOs by the ministers and not publishing the mandate letters of the ministers have given a cruel and blind authority to ruin our environment, endanger our species, and threaten the climate. Unfortunately, in Ontario, things could have been better. The uncontrolled death of our seniors in retirement homes became a national embarrassment. Doug Ford's focus on economy before people posed real challenges to an already challenged economy. And the sudden decision to rescind protection policies that have resulted in the highest cases of COVID-19 isn't because the pandemic is over, it is because Doug Ford gave up. Stephen Del Duca's Liberal Party has a plan to put Ontario back on track. It is time to rebuild our economies. It is time to fix our health care. It is time to protect the environment. And it is time to grow. It really is time to build back better. In our recently launched platform, we provided concrete solutions on how we intend to grow Ontario while helping fellow residents in need. Small businesses need help. So afflicted by the pandemic and a focus on a big business, Stephen Del Duca and Ontario Liberal Party's plan will rebuild confidence in the economy. Our residents need help getting around. That's why Stephen Del Duca and the Ontario Liberals will introduce a bucket ride transit plan. Our environment needs safeguarding. That's why all Ontarians must join Stephen Del Duca and Ontario Liberals to just say no to building a highway through our green belt. Our communities need to be safer. That's why Stephen Del Duca and the Ontario Liberals are deeply committed and passionate about banning handguns. It is time for change, and I'm pleased to represent a viable, realistic, and caring plan to help rebuild our province. I look forward to this conversation and answering questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. One of the questions that came from our readers and through the internet today and tonight follows on Roger's question about affordability and homelessness. I wonder if I could use this moment to allow each of you to talk about your view on basic living income.
It's from me?
If you'd like to start, that's fine. Please do. And I'll give you 2 minutes each.
Okay. Our families are suffering. Poverty level, polarization is bigger and bigger. Duckford's richer friends are getting more richer. And the people really need help. They are just looking towards them. The ministers are busy implementing MZOs and having dinner with the developers. That's very unfortunate. We have seen during the last 4 years. We are increasing basic minimum wage to $16. In fact, I feel sorry that during last elections, when the Duckford won, unfortunately, minimum wage was reduced to $14. And then after 4 years, the current government thought, oh, we have to increase it. I couldn't understand. The decision to bring back, reduce $14 was the right, or they're thinking to increase $15 is right. They were correct at that time, or they were correct this time. Definitely, they are wrong on both occasions. So Ontario Liberals will increase minimum wage to $16. We are increasing our seniors' pension up to $1,000.
30 seconds.
And we are introducing bucket ride so that cost of living can be reduced. We are introducing a PST rebate on up to $20 prepared food, so that it's a PST, it's 8%. Every single penny matters to all those people who cannot afford and who are living paycheck to paycheck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Peter or Khalid?
I mean, affordability has been one of the hottest topics here and throughout Ontario because life is just getting more hard. We need to ensure that the minimum wage increase, there's an increase in minimum wage. We need to make sure that people on ODSP and on supportive programs, they get an increase. We want to increase 20% in ODSP. And then also with that, every year on year, we have to view how our inflation is going. I mean, our meat is going up 4.3%. The gas is out of control. The bandit approach, both the parties on either side, whether it's a bucket ride for 6 months or whether it's a relief at the gas pump for 6 months, it's not going to work. We need actual solutions. We need to look at the problem from the root cause and start solving it, whether it comes to having proper rent control. Just right now, this morning, I was in Uxbridge door knocking, and I met this wonderful lady, and she was saying that she's about to get married, but her rent is $1,800 here in Uxbridge just to rent an apartment. I met another gentleman this morning while I was having breakfast here in Uxbridge that said that his landlord came and said, you have to pay $300 more for the rent or you have to leave. We need to ensure that rent control is in place so people could afford places and they're not staying in their car. We need to ensure that they are paying less for hydro. We need to ensure that there is a $20 minimum wage that goes up $16 this year, 17, 18, 19, and 20 in the next 3 years gradually. These are actual solutions that will help in the long run. So these bandit approaches we need to take out and we need to put in solutions that will help Ontario and build Ontario. Peter?
You know, as I mentioned, we increased the minimum wage. We actually did it. We are increasing it again in October, and we're providing rebates, as mentioned, to people making up to $50,000. In fact, we have the lowest personal income tax for low-income workers in Canada. You know, at the same time, we're rebuilding Ontario's economy, and I think 15 years, to my two colleagues to the right, and almost $200 billion of increased debt. Now, what did we get for that $200 billion of debt? Did we get more hospitals? Did we get more long-term care facilities? Did we get more subways? Did we get more highways? Did we get more housing? Did we get more broadband? So we're going to focus on supporting workers, supporting people in right across the spectrum, right across the province. And I'll speak about transportation, public transit. You talk about buck a ride. Well, Stephen Del Duca had plenty of time to build public transit and to do something about it. He was the do-nothing transportation minister. That's what you got for 15 years with the Liberal government, supported at times by the NDP. You know, Doug Ford is getting the job done. Doug Ford and our team are putting shovels in the ground. We're building Ontario. We're rebuilding this economy after 2 tough years and supporting every Ontarian, all 15 million.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to now go back to the media table for another question, and then shortly we will open the mic to those of you from the floor who would like to pose questions. And I'll get back to that in a moment.
Thanks, Tim. Gentlemen, it appears that everybody from the federal government on down is talking about housing, how they're going to increase the supply of housing and so forth. The residents of this community are no strangers to development. We have 6 developments going as we speak. They're going in here. There's another major one has been proposed for the northwest corner of the town. But in all of your platforms, in all of these developments, the price of the houses that these people are building, these developers are building, are in the $800,000 to $900,000 range. What are you going to do to ensure developers who build these subdivisions or whatever, what are you going to make sure they include rental accommodation, affordable homes? They don't all have to be mini mansions. But I'm not hearing any solutions to that. How do you guarantee that Joe Average is going to be able to afford a place to rent or a place to live or buy, whatever? It's just getting out of hand. People are getting thrown out of apartments all over the place.
Ibrahim?
Yeah. In my daily work life, I see all the time, and I have seen people struggling. I myself is a father of 3, and I always talk to my son, and I just feel sorry that for the next 10 years, if they're having the similar job, which is close to 100,000, and the family, as a family man, how long he has to save to get a 5 to 10% down payment. It looks like impossible. Similar situation is with all of us, not me. I'm just a part of community. Doug Ford and his colleagues and all those who sat on the table, they believe, let the market forces settle the prices. Because all the developers, they're rich. All the developers, they dine with all these people. And when I look at them, there's no law for speculators. There's no law for the people who invest just blindly, 2 houses, 3 houses, 5 houses. So we will work with the federal government. Federal government is bringing some laws. We will work with them, and we will emphasize there's affordable houses, 138,000 houses we are building in next 2 years. And in next 10 years, 1.5 million houses will be built. It's just a supply and demand. If more supply, it's a less demand. We have to create a demand, but not at the cost of green belt, not at the cost of environment. So we will be having a plan where 138,000 houses are being built and that will create 150,000 jobs. So it's a job creation, it's affordable housing and supply, and the market forces of supply and demand, and will bring the laws. And we will bring back the rental control. Because there's a lot of people who can afford it.
Peter, would you like to respond to some of the suggested criticisms?
Well, I'm going to talk about our plan. And again, to answer the question, I have 3 kids as well, and I share the same concerns and the dream of home ownership. It's interesting, last night I was knocking on doors here, and yesterday all afternoon and evening in Uxbridge, and I was knocking on doors on Cosmos Avenue, so I thought, that's kind of interesting. Here we are with Uxbridge Cosmos today. Look, first of all, Ibrahim, I put in place in March a non-resident speculation tax, 20%, and made it apply for all of Ontario. Before it had only applied to the GTA. That's the most comprehensive speculation tax in all of Canada. We have a vacancy tax in place. In fact, Toronto is going forward with that, and Ottawa and Hamilton have also indicated their interest in applying a vacancy tax, and we've given them the ability to do that. But at the end of the day, supply is a very important point. Now, Roger, you raised affordability. That is absolutely, housing affordability and affordable housing is absolutely critical. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is to make sure things get built. When working with the municipalities, making sure that permitting and regulations are managed so that we can get things that developers don't sit on properties or sit on development so that they can charge higher prices down the road. And we set $1.5 million target before these fellows did in their platforms. We put that in the budget, $1.5 million. And in the last year, 2021, over 100,000 new homes were built. That was the highest level in 35 years. Rental properties, the highest level since the early 90s, over 30 years. We've got to provide more supply. It's economics. And of course, there's a lot more. There's not a silver bullet, but we didn't get there overnight. We got there through 15 years of mismanagement by the previous government, and that's why Doug Ford and our team are acting, and that's why we're going to get the job done.
Colin?
Thank you for the question. So we believe housing is a human right, and it should be a place to call home. And we're talking about affordability. Just making 1.5 million houses and not having an affordability is not going to solve a problem. Through a new public agency, Housing Ontario, we will build 250,000 affordable and non-market homes over the next decade, to operated by public and non-profit and co-op housing providers. This includes 100,000 affordable homes charging rents geared to income, as well as 150,000 non-market homes charging below market rents. We need to ensure that our updated platform recommits to repairing 260,000 social housing units, providing income supporters for more than 310,000 tenants households, and building 60,000 new supportive housing units. These are plans that work. We're going to ensure for first-time home buyers that there is a Home in Ontario program which will help of first-time home buyers with the down payment of 10%, so they could actually purchase this home. And when we're talking about affordability and purchasing houses, I fall in that category. I am the one that could use that 10% to purchase that home. Your kids and your grandkids could use that help. These are concrete plans to have affordable housing in Pickering, Uxbridge, and throughout Ontario. Thank you.
Thanks for your responses, gentlemen, to the questions. I'd like to get those of you who'd like to pose questions at the microphone to do so now. We've got about 45 minutes or so before I invite the candidates to do some closing statements. So if you have a question, the protocol is as it always has been. I invite you to come to the microphone. Obviously, the issue that you're raising in a question might require a small introduction, but I'm going to drive you to the question quickly so that we don't end up having a rant. And if somebody ahead of you asks the question that you were going to ask, find another one, okay? And as I invite you to the microphone, please identify yourself, and if you are representing an organization or association, please also identify yourself in that context as well, okay? The microphone is yours. We just have to make sure that it's live. Keep talking, we'll make sure that it's there.
Oh, okay. I don't know if it's on or not, but, okay. Okay. I'll project. So, my name is Natalie Munn. I am not here on behalf of any organization, but I am a healthcare worker who works in Uxbridge at our local hospital and at our health center. My specific question I wanted to pose first to Mr. Becklin-Falvey. You've made it quite clear tonight that your party's platform is based on a plan of infrastructure building, and in your budget you've announced plans for new hospital builds, including the Uxbridge Hospital. I work there, and I know that that's actually not the priority that I feel we need. Our system is broken in many ways, and I fear that by increasing spending in infrastructure, we're not actually addressing the issues we need to get to. So specifically, I wanted to ask about long-term care and your platform around this. In your budget you announced a few weeks ago, you talked about increasing beds and capacity, but the national review of long-term care and what needs to change talked about lots of system change, including increasing minimum wage for workers who work in long-term care, reducing the size of long-term care to smaller home-like settings. So lots of different strategies that weren't addressed in your budget, and I was hoping you could explain to me why you wanted to focus on infrastructure rather than those system changes.
And I'll give the other candidates an opportunity to respond after Peter has.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, for that question, and thank you for your service in supporting the community here in Uxbridge on the front lines of healthcare. You know, first off, you know, we have an aging population, and so we have to have some infrastructure in place. 2/3, as you would know, people that go to long-term care facilities often they can't be helped at home for dementia, Alzheimer's, and a range of needs. And by the way, it's not just elderly people that need sometimes help in a long-term care facility. So I think, and we saw it right around the world, but here in Canada as well, we need to do more for our long-term care industry. And when I cut the ribbon at Lake Ridge Gardens, with these 320 new modern beds right beside the Ajax Pickering Hospital, I said, this is for those families who've suffered and lost loved ones. I'm motivated to get this thing done so that we could really provide not just the infrastructure, but the staffing. And on the staffing, we put in, over a year ago, we made the announcement, November of 2020, 27,000 new personal support workers and nurses, and I put $4.9 billion aside for hiring those nurses and personal support workers. And as you would know, we also increased the wage for personal support workers by $3 an hour and made it permanent. So we're doing things, we're doing more for recruiting and training. So it's not just infrastructure, it is the human health resources. We're acting on that. But as I mentioned earlier, it's also many people want to age at home, and that makes a lot of sense. So that's why I put over $1.5 billion to provide healthcare services and people that can go to homes, more supports. The seniors tax credit that I just announced in the budget, seniors care at home, which will help pay for hearing aids and walkers and supporting healthcare workers who go to their homes for those who need it most. Also, in last year's budget, Natalie, I also put in the seniors home renovation tax credit, so we could help with guardrails and lifts and infrastructure in homes, so people could age at home longer.
Thank you,
so
Peter.
It's a combination of physical infrastructure and human health resources.
Ibrahim,
Yeah.
and then Khalid.
On the other day, some reporter asked a question to Peter that the budget you have announced, the election budget you have announced, if you return back and Doug Ford have the government, would you be going to pass this budget? And
I said yes, 100%.
you said, I don't know if you are presenting that budget, because there's nothing that you will be a finance minister again. Okay. When I look at the long term, my mom is 85 years old, and I always look through her eyes. During the pandemic, Orchard Villa Pickering lost 71 lives overnight. City of Pickering, along with other voices, they passed the resolution and they emphasis upon the Doug Ford government, please, can you conduct an inquiry into that horrified incident? And Doug Ford refused. And my friend Peter is sitting on the decision-making table. So that is something I always, if I were him, I could have resigned. No, this is my riding. Everyone has a right to know the truth. You have long-term care. This is why long-term care should not be for profit. This is why in our plan, we have said that we will buy all long-term care and it will be publicly funded so that everyone, each senior, should get the equal opportunity. Regarding the jobs, in our plan, which is a fully costed, costed plan, it's a viable, responsible plan, we are hiring 100,000 healthcare workers. We are creating jobs for 1,000 mental health workers. We are bringing 3,000 medical beds. And along with that, we are creating green jobs as well. There's other jobs, but I'm not at this time because we're talking about the healthcare. So we need services. We don't need cut.
Okay, thank you very much for those points. Khalid, please.
Thank you for the question, Natalie. Oh, can you hear me? No? Is it good? All right. Thank you for the question, Natalie. I truly believe that seniors should stay in their house as long as possible, and government should help. The government should address these issues and ensure that seniors could stay at home as long as possible. And another thing is, my mom is a senior, and I cannot imagine her going into a long-term care right now because of the big profit that's in there. And it's done by both the governments on either side of me right now. We need to make sure that profit is out of long-term care and care is back in. And just not care, care that will actually put them first and not the business owners and not the big CEOs that could get big checks and license renewals even after seniors were treated terribly. So we need to implement a standard of 4 hours of care per resident immediately. Make sure that workers and residents and clients have PPP they need. Hiring thousands of PSWs and making their job full-time and better paid, ensuring they have dental care, they have vision care, having 10 paid sick days. So if them or their sick ones or their loved ones at home are sick, they can stay home and not come in to work just because they got to make ends meet when affordability is over the roof. Putting in infection control specialist into every home care so to ensure that there is not another outbreak and seniors are affected by these. These are real concrete plans that our party is putting forward. Obviously, the first priority is seniors stay home as long as possible, but if they attend long-term care, they are getting 4 hours of care. They are being looked after, and also the workers are not getting burnt out. There are more PSWs, 4 hours of proper care. Yeah.
Thanks, Colin, and thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Doug?
Like my mask off, Ted, I'm on my hearing aids. My name is Doug Moffett, and my question is sort of related to one of the questions that was asked earlier. It's been my impression for a long time that if you go back to the SARS epidemic, we learned at that point that keeping nurses on part-time pay, support workers on part-time pay to save money really caused all kinds of problems. People don't get benefits if they don't, the nurses and the personal care workers don't get benefits unless they work full-time. What will you do to change that portion of the Labor Act that allows people to keep employees on a part-time basis just to avoid paying their proper benefits?
Who'd like to take that one first? Khalid?
Sure, absolutely. First thing we need to do is repeal Bill 124. I think that's the first most important step. We've been speaking with nurses across the province. We've been speaking to healthcare workers, and this is a very unfair bill for frontline healthcare workers. We need to ensure that they have proper paid sick days, and it comes back to the point of having part-time and not benefits to make sure that it doesn't matter if they're part-time or full-time, they have paid sick days so they can take care of themselves and their loved one if they're not feeling well. We want to make sure that they have dental care. We want to make sure that we hire 30,000 more nurses to fill the shortage that we have in our healthcare system. So we have been calling for addressing these issues. I mean, we had hallway medicine last time around, and this time when the pandemic hit, we went from hallway medicine to sidewalk medicine. In Pickering, the Lake Ridge Hospital there, we actually put out the tent outside the emergency room. People that were coming in middle of winter, sick, had to wait outside in the cold to be seen by a doctor. That is not acceptable. We need to invest more money. And I 100% agree with you. We need to fix what's broken. And that's what we're going to do when elected on June 2nd.
Peter?
Oh, okay,
And then
Sure.
Ibrahim.
Sure. No, thanks, Doug, that's a really good question. And I think, one thing that we have been very focused on is labor legislation to make improvements and enhancements to labor and to workers right across the province. As you know, we've introduced a number of bills already working for workers that is pushing the rights of workers further, whether it's in the gig economy, whether it's right to disconnect, whether it's going after unfair trade practices with regard to bringing in foreign workers. We're going to do and continue to do that type of work, and they should get benefits. And that's why those benefits are so important, and focusing on workers. And the reality is we have more jobs than we have workers. So we need to be an environment that is very accommodative and supportive of labor. I put $1 billion in 2 weeks ago to continue the work of supporting workers so they have the skills necessary to succeed. I love telling the story of three workers who have worked for Durham Transit who were retrained to work on the electric buses versus the motorized buses. We have to reskill and retrain. I love, there was a fellow named Roger who was let go of the GM Oshawa plant. And through our Second Careers program, was able to get retrained and funded by us to choose the career that he wanted, which was to help people, and he became a personal support worker. So we are doing things, we're getting things done, Doug, but we need to continue moving forward and supporting the great workers in this province.
Ibrahim?
Today, in Ajax, once again, the next Premier of Ontario, Stephen De Luca, announced clearly that Bill 124 will be repealed as soon as we will be in the office. He will be in the office. And there was a delegation from the nursing industry. That's very important. We believe that our healthcare workers must be, and especially nurses, they must be well paid. We are increasing minimum $25 for personal support workers. As I said earlier, 100,000 more health workers, including nurses. We are investing $1 billion just to clear the surgical backlog. It was announced today, $1 billion, so that our health system should be smooth and better. And when Doug Ford announced that there should be a two-tier healthcare system, that means one healthcare system is common Canadians, and the other healthcare system is only rich friends of Doug Ford and the people who are sitting on the table. And we are hiring 3,000 more healthcare workers. So it's very important that we should strengthen our healthcare system, publicly funded healthcare systems, so that we can strengthen long-term care, senior homes, and clear the backlog.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
I'm Brett Moore, retired, fixed income, like a lot of folks. And I have worked all my life on environment and sustainability issues. And if I had to pick 3 bullets that are important to me, and they include, these are big tent type statements, clearly sustainability, affordability, and accountability. If I were to take to the bank everything I've heard from the 3 of you, it wouldn't matter which party got in. A large percentage of the issues that we are confronted with would be addressed in the next 4 years, 10 years, whatever. The problem is accountability. How do we hold you as individuals and your parties collectively accountable to actually deliver on what is promised? Because the enthusiasm for promises, like vaporware, all kinds of noise.
Could I ask you to be slightly more specific and zero in on a specific environmental issue that you want the accountability answer from them?
What I want is an answer related to global accountability.
Well, they can't be responsible for global accountability. They can be responsible for provincial accountability.
Be accountable for things like a contract for a minister of environment as to what are the things they are going to be accountable for. And there's a debate going on right now in Ontario that says ministers have letters that say, this is what you're going to do. Oh, well, we don't want to share that.
Okay, would you like to
Accountability
respond?
That says, we actually, and I don't want to hear about, we're going to wait 4 years and the accountability comes at the next election.
So accountability of the environmental minister, the environment minister.
It's general.
No, I'm happy to.
Okay, fine.
No, I think, and was it Brett? Brett, yeah, no, I think accountability, sustainability, affordability, great question, great comments. I'll tackle it a few ways. I think on accountability, I came from the private sector. I spent 30 years before I went into public service and ran in 2018. And I believed in transparency and accountability. And I think if you have a public company, you answer to your shareholders and your employees and stakeholders every 90 days, quarterly results. These guys, in the previous, when I say the previous Liberal government, in the last mandate, 14 times that they were to go to the public with the quarterly results, they only went out 6 times. 8 times they didn't even do a press release. That's not accountability. That's not transparency with the people's money. We've been out every quarter, 4 years, 16 times. Now, the Auditor General did look at our budget, and she put out a statement last week that said our budget was a fully costed budget and it was reasonable. 4 years ago, Brett, the Liberal government put out a budget and she said it was not a reasonable representation of the books of Ontario. The audited opinions, we got 4 clean audited opinions. This is a third party taking a look at our books. The previous Liberal government, they got qualified opinions. So I think you're absolutely right, whether it's in so many regards, we have to be transparent and accountable and not wait 4 years. We got to do it right from the beginning. Sustainability, you know, we're getting things done. One of the things that we have made a real focus is building electric vehicle cars in this province. We want to be the manufacturing capital of North America, building more electric vehicles to help our economy and help the environment. We've now announced jobs coming back to Ontario that are going to build these electric vehicles. 2,600 jobs in Oshawa. You talk about affordability, that's 2,600 jobs that are now back in Oshawa to build electric vehicles. That's happening in Oakville, that's happening in Windsor, that's happening in Alliston, in Ingersoll, in Brampton. So these are good paying jobs. How are we going to power those cars? You know, we want a clean environment. Absolutely, we all agree on that. That's why we're investing in small modular reactors. They're clean, they're safe, they're good jobs, and they're secure. And so we've invested in that in Darlington so that we can power these electric vehicles of the future.
Thank you, Peter.
And well, if I can just on one last piece, you know, prosperity should be for the whole province. And opening up the far north through the Ring of Fire, where we have critical minerals that go into the batteries that will be put in these electric vehicles, so we don't have to go to Russia or China with First Nations, the corridor to prosperity. We've got the critical minerals. That's how we're going to do environmental sustainability.
Thank you. Khalid?
I think there was a big piece in there about the mandate letter from Doug Ford and why it's not public. I think that should be public when it comes to accountability. Talking about environment, we do have a retrofitting program which will create over 100,000 jobs while making our environment greener. We do have the Green New Democratic Deal, which will create over 1 million jobs while protecting the environment. We will not rip through the green belt to make Highway 413. We'll scrap that and we'll ensure that families and our healthcare system and our education system is funded. So yes, we got to protect our environment. We got to make sure there's accountability, there is transparency. We've been asking the government, as the official opposition, Andrew Horwath, the Ontario NDP, has been advocating to bring transparency to government, and we're going to commit. So we don't have to wait 4 years for that. June 2nd, we have an option of electing a government that will be transparent and that will work for you.
Thanks, Khalid. Ibrahim?
I will start from home. My Uxbridge. I'm going to be a representative. I offered myself to be a representative for Uxbridge. Such a beautiful city. Such a scenic beauty. The land of Uxbridge is the most precious land in the world. Such a historical city. And tourists love to come and see Uxbridge. And my Uxbridge has been given to the builders, to the developers. This is not that Uxbridge I have been seeing for the last 15 years. Urban sprawl is there in Toronto, Pickering, Uxbridge, Pickering, Ajax. But at least we should keep Uxbridge out of that unchecked and irresponsible development. MZOs are used for Uxbridge. I have a question. Local opinion was heard? I believe not. Was there any agreement when we have given Uxbridge to the builders, to the developers? I believe not. That is, I'm just starting from my home. Second thing, regarding the environment. Highway 413 is saving only 37 seconds. And Doug Ford is spending $10 billion. And if we look at the today's inflation rate, this $10 billion may not be $10 billion. It may end up $15 to $20 billion. We will cancel the highway. We will put that $10,000 for school, for development infrastructure of schools. COVID-19 showed us that our schools' ventilation is not great as used to be, or it should be. So and we are hiring 10,000 teachers. We are strengthening our school system by just canceling one Highway 413. Regarding, we have talked about the responsibility. Auditor General report is full with mismanagement of Doug Ford. I will come later on that. So
You've got 30 seconds left, sir.
Yeah, I couldn't understand when Auditor General says Doug Ford's government was not a responsible government, why I, as a voter, should give another chance to Doug Ford. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Next.
Hello, my name's Brandon Underwood. I'm a resident of Pickering. And my question is in regards to, so I'm not representing anyone here tonight, but I am a member of the US LGBTQI plus community. My question is in regards to kind of early on in the term of the PCs, they pulled back the education that was put forward by the Liberal government about US LGBTQIA plus communities. These communities are more likely to experience mental health issues, homelessness. There's all kinds of issues that kind of touch on that we talked about tonight. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the PCs cutting that from the education system. Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Well, the only cutting back, and thank you for that question, the only cutting back is that the Liberal government, when they were in power for 15 years, they closed 600 schools. They closed 600 schools. We're getting 2 new schools in Pickering. We are enhancing the curriculum and have enhanced the curriculum. So we'll continue to do that. We in this budget, I put $3 billion more in for education. That's not a cut, by the way. That's, I don't know if you checked your math, but that's an increase. So we're going to continue to support you and support the education system, support the students, support the parents. We put in place the best childcare deal in all of Canada, I believe, so that we could have more spaces, $10 a day, and we'll continue to do that. We put more money into mental health, and we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to support you and the curriculum and make our education system, continue investing in the great education system that we have.
Colleague?
Thank you for the question, Brandon. I believe the question wasn't about cuts. It was about cut to the curriculum and moving backward. I think as a province, we need to move forward. We need to end all forms of hate. We need to educate our children about the LGBTQ community. We need to educate students about Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, which is happening here in our province, which is why we presented Bill 86, which was delayed. We're going to ensure that we have a world-class education, kids in our schools could learn. And I'm sorry your question was probably misheard, but we're going to bring that back, and we're going to make sure that no community is left behind, and we all could prosper together. We're going to ensure that there is access, for easy access for the LGBTQ to X community, to access mental health care service, in long-term cares, that they could go into long-term cares without feeling isolated or not being taken care of. So our plan includes that. We have amazing people in our caucus right now from the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. Jill Andrews, and she's been a strong advocate, and we're going to keep on fighting for all communities, no matter who it is.
Thanks, Khalid. Ibrahim?
Thank you very much for your question. Ontario is made of different communities. It's a bouquet. It's a colorful bouquet of all the communities. And LGBTQ plus 2 is one of those communities that made Ontario beautiful. We have Ontario Liberal, our Nepean candidate, we have a candidate from this community running as a MPP. Ontario Liberal has a team of brand new candidates. It's a brand new platform and a brand new leader. We are looking forward. We are not moving backward. We don't want to see everything in the rearview mirror. We have to look in front. So for all marginalized communities, I'm a part of that. You're a part of that. So we should come forward, and they should be a part of mainstream. Any kind of hate, any kind of Islamophobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, that has to be eliminated from this society. I stand with you, and I understand the Ontario Liberals are the first party who realized that, and they looked after LGBTQ communities at their best.
Thank you very much. And thanks again for the question. Thanks for coming up from Pickering. We have 3 questions left among the 3 that we'll call it.
One question?
No, sorry, the 3 of you who are remaining. I just want to make sure you, oh, there's 2 of you, okay.
Good. So my name is Carol Fraser, and I've lived in the Uxbridge area in the country for, I guess, the last 39 years. And over that time, we've seen this constant development. Urban spread, highways, pavement, good farmland is just being turned more and more into housing developments. And so my question to you is, how are you going to balance the need for urban development and urban growth, which is what I've been hearing all night about building this, building that, with the need to protect and conserve the green belt, species habitat, and the significant watersheds that go through our section, Uxbridge, Newmarket, and down to Pickering.
Not to mention farmland for our food.
Farmland for our food.
Which was a question that emerged too. So that's a huge issue, but we're right in the middle of it. Gentlemen, who wants to take that first?
Yeah.
Ibrahim, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful question. And I'm a son of farmer. I plowed my own land. I understand the relation of a land with the farmer. To me, it is a child to mother, because our land produces foods for our lives. Greenbelt 2018, if we remember, if we go back, 2018 when Doug Ford said that he will give these builders green land, developers green land, if we recall. At that time, Ontarians said no. There's a lot of pressure, and then Doug Ford said, oh no, it will be a limited something like that. I will not do that. I don't know the exact word. Sorry for that. But then we saw in Uxbridge, then we saw in Pickering, MZOs were used, and green belts, the builders were given the green belts. Developers were given the green belt. Same thing happened over here. Yes, we need, especially during my last question, I said, local opinion matters. Agreement of people matters. So without agreement, without opinions, no development should be, or no builder or a developer should be given a permit to do that. And I stand with you because when I see a land is given to a farmer land, especially given to a developer, I cry. It should not happen. Thank you.
Khalid? And then Peter.
Thank you. I mean, we definitely need to protect our farmland. We need to protect our green belt. We cannot rip out trees and go through our green belt just to build a highway. We cannot have businesses build in our green belt in Curtis Creek in our riding. We're going to protect farmland and water from developers and protect the green belt while increasing our economic opportunities for farmers and agriculture operators. We'll make sure that we consult before anything is being built with farmers and with the residents, that we're not ripping through and harming our farmers and our green belt. So yes, I'll leave it at that. I'll keep it short.
Peter?
Thank you. Really good question. Thank you, Carol. So I'll start with farmers, many great farmers here in Uxbridge. And of course, Lisa Thompson was up here. We had a round table with all the farmers. We're listening to the farmers, and we've done a lot for farmers right across this province and support them, whether it's the risk management program, processing, security, and a range of issues. Let me talk about also one, just to correct the record, MZOs. So to build that long-term care facility in Ajax Pickering that took 13 months, the municipality's request. We only do it with the municipality's request. So it comes from the municipalities, and we were able to build a long-term care facility in 13 months to help people in the long-term care. I mean, I mentioned before, 611 beds built in 7 years, we did 320 in 13 months, and right across the province, thousands. I'd also say the previous government touched the Greenbelt 17 times. We haven't touched the Greenbelt. And let me tell you another thing, Urban River Valley process. So we did 2 phases, consultation of what should be added to the Greenbelt. So regions right across the province submitted what they thought should be in the Greenbelt. And when they didn't, like in Durham, they didn't put Carruthers Creek, there's a process now, the headwaters that is, to hear from constituents, hear from everybody what should be in the Greenbelt. So we've taken action there. And finally, I would say, and I put in the budget, and I'm very proud to, the first provincial park in 40 years that's coming to Ontario.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Last question of the evening. I don't think that microphone is working. Come over here. This one is working. Did I shut you up? Yeah. I'll give you a crack. You've been patient. Sit down there and put your go right up to the microphone.
Hello, this is, my name is Tony, and I'm from Khmer, I live in Durham North. And I want to know the people help the Khmer live in Durham North. And Doug Ford.
Is it Tony?
Yeah.
So basically, there's been a lot of talk about healthcare in terms of long-term care facilities and nursing homes, but not so much for the disability side of that sector. So people who are on ODSP, so financially, even our staffing crisis, I think currently we have like 60 staff off right now, and we're all working overtime and burned out. So just how you guys are gonna help that?
Well, that's a great question. Was it Tony?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Tony, and thanks for that very important question. And, you're absolutely right. The ODSP, that's why the Premier announced that we're increasing through legislation the ODSP by 5% and then indexing with inflation. We also have to make sure that we've got enough developmental support workers, the great people that help many in need. So thank you for doing that. And that's been a hallmark of what we've been we say personal support workers, but we have to remember the development support workers and the facilities to provide the accommodations to support that. And we'll continue to do that. That's one of our priorities. And And I really am encouraged that you came forward with that question because, you know, it's something that's very near and dear. You judge a society based on how we all work together, and the two of you are examples of how that works in Ontario. So thank you.
Thank you. Colin?
Thank you for the question, Tony. I did mention a little bit about the ODSP. I mean, living on $1,100 right now with the inflation, it's not possible. Families are really struggling to keep lights on at nighttime to read a book just because they cannot afford to pay the bills. They're deciding if they should keep their cell phone alive or go buy groceries. And it's something that the government has cut. And I come from a social service background. I know how burnt out, you're a social worker. I know how burnt out we get with all the casework, and cuts to that is just making it so much worse. We need to invest, we need to make sure that people on ODSP and these support programs are getting the funds so they could survive, they could rent a place, buy groceries, and have access to other amenities in the community. We want to make sure, I mean, a question for Mr. Bethan Falvey is, you presented the budget, not even once it said autism in the budget. How are you saying that you're so proud of a budget that's not including children's in there, that's not including addressing issues that's been there, that is cutting fundings? The NDP will fully support ensuring families to have a chance to choose IBI and ABA therapies, as well as other services and support. We have been there. We have been there talking to people. I have been there. The Ontario NDP candidates across, the leader has been there speaking with communities. We know how tough it is, and we want to ensure that no one is left behind, whether they're on ODSP and whether they need assistance of any social assistance. And which is why I'm also running, and which is why I'm running from the NDP, because I truly believe that we are the only party that are addressing these issues. And like I mentioned before, it's not something with a bandit approach, it's a real solution that needs to be there for long term.
Thanks, Colin.
It has two questions, in fact. One is long-term and one is obviously living cost for ODSP. Long-term, I have already explained that long-term, we don't want long-term for profit. Long-term should be publicly funded. It's our taxes, and we want to look after our seniors, our elders. When we will, Stephen Del Duca has already announced, and it is in our budget as well, that all long-term care will be bought from the private sector, and they will be fully publicly funded, so that for living opportunities should be for equal for all. Second question about ODSP. We understand, and we have I have seen a lot of people who are struggling. No one take disability because they want to. This is something someone is obliged. They have no choice. That is the reason, as soon as we will be elected, we will increase 20% ODSP, 10% by this July, and 10% by the next July. So it will be a 20% increase. Everyone has a right to live comfortable. Everyone has a right to access to all kind of amenities. And everyone has a right to go and spend some vacation. If we don't give, if we don't feed and give better ODSP, then how can they go for vacation once in a year? So we are here. Ontario Liberal is here. We believe Ontario is a place to grow, and the choice is yours.
Thank you.
We are for you.
Final question. Sir.
Thanks, Ted, for making that exception. So my name is Mike McDonald. I worked in healthcare for over 30 years in both the acute care and the long-term care sector. I can smile and say that all three of your parties, I have been in the sector when your parties were in power. I want to bring it full circle, back to what Natalie was saying about the healthcare issues that we face. I appreciate that all of you have acknowledged that the pandemic, at least that's what I heard, is the pandemic is really just a symptom of a bigger problem, which is the healthcare system is desperately in need. I appreciate that infrastructure is needed, but the number one priority right now is human resources. And I hear all of these talk about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. One question, where are the people coming from for all three of you? That's the first question for all three. My second question to the candidate for the Liberal Party, I appreciate the comment about the private sector being bought out. What's the cost?
Thank you very much. Our plan is fully costed, and there will be a task force looking into it. And as soon as we will be in the government, we will give you all entire. It will be the money. For example, when we look at Doug Ford, they forgave $1 billion in fines to Highway 407 management, and that $1 billion was our taxpayers' money. As far as your question is concerned, task force will be there, and then we will buy all these long-term cares for our people. And the money, our tax, should go for people, not for the business people who want to make money out of long-term care.
But the other part of his question is key, and if I jump in, Mike, and that's the people. Where are the people who are going to fill these highly skilled positions to deliver that service?
Sorry for that. I actually forgot. My apologies. We are repealing Bill 124. That is gone as soon as we will be in power. And we are supporting internationally qualified nurses and health workers to absorb in the system. Have you seen an MBBS or MD doctor driving taxi in the streets of Toronto? There's hundreds and thousands of people who have the best credentials in the world. One of my friends is a top neurosurgeon in Saudi Arabia. When he came over here, they said, no, sorry, you can't be absorbed in the system. Now, he went to Scotland, and in the Scottish system, he's absorbed. So look at how many international, qualified, skilled workers and professionals are doing our jobs. They're driving Ubers. So we have to absorb in the system. So we will absorb them, and especially nurses. There's a lot of qualified nurses, and doctors, engineers will do that.
Thank you. Peter, Khalid?
Sure. It's a great question, Mike. On the issue of human health resources, where are you getting the people from? That's why we launched a campaign to hire 8,600 nurses a year ago, 27,000 more for our long-term care. Accreditation, as was just mentioned, is something that we've worked with the college to allow more people who are trained elsewhere to be able to work here. The retention bonus, of course, keeping people in the system is really critical as well. The medical schools that we've launched in Brampton, in Scarborough, as well as Lake Ridge Health through Queens, so we can educate more the college granting of allowing more colleges to grant nursing degrees and to encourage people to come into the healthcare sector to support our loved ones is so critical. So there's many things that we're doing. We're actually getting it done. And as I mentioned, the Ajax Pickering Hospital and the Lake Ridge Gardens right beside it, we're hiring people, and they are already taking care of residents for the 320 beds, not all of them there yet, over 100 so far. which is great. We've got to not only attract people from around the world, we have to educate them, we have to, they're great careers, and we got to retain them, and that's what we're doing, and we're getting it done.
Khalid, and then I'm going to ask gentlemen that you bring forth your concluding remarks, please. But Khalid, I'd like you to respond to that part of the question.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. So yes, we are hiring 30,000 nurses. We are going to ease the foreign credentials for working in hospitals. We're going to make it more appealing for people to get in the sector. Right now, currently it's not, with not having paid sick days, having a wage cap, and addressing these issues. So our colleges, we have more students in colleges and university graduating an appealing career, to be honest, because a lot of nurses right now are leaving south to the border just because they're not being treated fairly. So there'll be some coming from there. We're going to be having more graduates. We're going to be reducing the restriction for foreign skilled workers, which will cover the gap. So in our platform, it is detailed on how we're going to do it. It is a plan which is possible, and we'll be working towards it. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. In reverse order from the original introductory remarks, Ibrahim, and then Khalid and Peter. If I could invite you to offer your closing remarks, please.
Such a great conversation. Once again, I still feel sorry. I joined a little late, but I hope that I didn't miss a lot of things. Thank you very much for providing me the opportunity to share Stephen Del Duca and Ontario Liberals' plan. It's clear that our vision is very different from that of Doug Ford government. While the Conservatives have failed to present a plan that would put Ontario back on track, we have shared a well-thought-out and concrete plan that helps businesses, families, people who need support, and this is very responsible and sustainable. Friends, fellow Ontarians, at this time, the time is now to think about our future, and you need to be taken seriously. Too often, Doug Ford launched unnecessary and costly projects that were derailed due to poor planning, lack of research, and controversy. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I have 3 pages in my hand. These 3 pages I took from Auditor General's report. Auditor General, who is the ears and eyes of our taxpayers' money. The first page says, Doug Ford spent $1 billion, and that was misspent. They should not be spent. So $1 billion. The second page. While I know how sensitive and important environment is for the people of Uxbridge, Ford government is harming endangered species, boosting industry through Environment Ministry. Is there any constructive thing Doug Ford has done? And the third is from my friend Peter Bethlen Falvey. Very clear, and I would like to read that. Auditor General has showed her no confidence on Doug Ford government by saying, small businesses in Ontario faced through most difficult years over and needed Doug Ford's support and help. But Doug Ford and now Peter and former Rod Phillip, finance minister, were missing in action while the business support program was being designed. I'm not saying Auditor General of Ontario saying that.
1 minute.
Where were these plans? And we have talked about, especially my minister, who is going to be minister until June the 2nd, and then there will be new, then hopefully it will be former minister. Where were these plans and ideas when Ontario need help? Why not? But not before. He talked a lot of things. But 4112, Highway 412, Highway 418, that was a pledge for 2018. That was a promise for 2018. Why it is implemented today? Because Doug Ford and his team is known for Mr. and the team broken promises. In the election, Doug Ford and the Conservative plan are as solid as the gas stickers on the pumps, as clear as the blue license plates, and as ineffective as bucket beer. Our tomorrow begins right now. Please join Stephen Del Duca and the Liberals and bring back Ontario as a place to grow. The choice is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Khalid, please.
I'll do the closing remarks from where we started. First of all, thank you everyone for coming out and surviving this debate. I know it's really late, and thank you for staying. I would like to thank Mr. Ibrahim and Peter for coming out today and sharing our vision and how we could make Ontario better. For far too long, we have been neglected. We have been left behind. We keep on switching between the Liberals and Conservative. And it's time we choose a government that's actually working for you. Here we could talk about which government is going to be bad or worse. We have a plan that will work, and Ontario NDP is bringing that plan. We're going to make sure that everyone is represented in Ontario. We're going to make sure our hospital and our healthcare system is taken care of. We're going to make sure seniors are being taken care of. We're going to ensure that Greenbelt is protected and the environment is protected. And all of this is possible. We are not aiming for the moon and stars. These are things that are possible that we're going to achieve. We were the first party to release our platform in details on how we could achieve this. And on June 2nd, when we elect the Ontario NDP government, we will make all of this possible. Once again, thank you for coming, and I ask for your support on June 2nd for making Ontario a better place. Thank you.
Thanks, Khalid. Peter?
First off, I do want to thank my colleagues for joining us tonight. Putting your name forward in public service is a real, takes courage to do that, so I thank you, gentlemen. And it's important in democracy. I want to thank Ted for moderating tonight, and of course, Uxbridge Cosmos for sponsoring us tonight, and of course, all of you with your very important questions, and for you watching at home. You know, I ran in 2018 because I'm the son of two Hungarian World War II refugees, and they met in this province. They got married in this province, and were able to raise a family and have a job and feel safe. And I want the same Ontario that my parents had in raising a family, including me, that we could have for everyone in Ontario, 15 million people. Our plan is very clear. We want to rebuild Ontario's economy after 2 years of the pandemic. We want good paying jobs, bigger paychecks and better jobs for all Ontarians, prosperity right across the province. We want to support all workers in this province, focused on giving them the skills and the tools and the support necessary to succeed in this province. Thirdly, we want to build infrastructure. We want to build things. You know, the previous government had 15 years to build, 200 billion, almost 200 billion in additional debt. We're going to build things, transportation, public transportation, taking cars off the road, building highways so people can spend time with their families and not in gridlock. We're building hospitals, the Uxbridge Hospital here for a generation with a long-term modern facility, 192 beds, a campus of care right beside the medical facility. This is a vision for the future. We're going to continue to build this province like it's wasn't done for 15 years. We're going to continue to focus on bringing costs down, gas prices, the tolls. By the way, the tolls and the stickers were increased by the Minister of Transportation, who's now the Liberal leader, Stephen Del Duca. You know, we know that things are tougher. And that's why we're acting, the low-income family and individual tax, so that up to 1.1 million people making up to $50,000 can get a tax rebate. And finally, we have a plan to stay open. A plan to stay open so that we can not have the economy and the health of all citizens at risk. That's why we're investing in hospitals. That's why we're investing in long-term care. That's why we're investing in more home care and better home care. That's why we're investing in nurses and personal support workers and physicians and specialists. You can't have a healthy economy without healthy people. So on June 2nd, please consider voting for Peter Bethlenfalvy to continue to be your representative of all 110,000 constituents in this great riding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, candidates. We see these gentlemen once in a situation like this. They do this every night. And so we appreciate the time, the work, the preparation, and the energy that you've given us tonight in response to our questions and to attempt to get a clearer sense of your vision for Ontario's future, our riding's future. And I come back to where I began a couple of hours ago. We are fortunate we haven't got bombs falling on our heads as we sit here tonight and speak our minds and freely and address your issues and your attitudes and get a better sense of where we're going. And we thank you so much for the genuine involvement of the three of you tonight. It wasn't a problem having you here later. It was perfectly fine. Thank you for making the effort to be here. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience. Thank you at home. One further note, if you haven't had a chance to and you'd like to check out the availability of advanced polls, go to Elections Ontario, the Voter Information Service page. I checked it today, and it indicates that polls will be open from May the 19th to the 28th, from 10 in the morning to 8 at night at the Uxbridge Senior Centre. If you can't remember that, just go to the site, Elections Ontario, check it out, the times and the dates, so that if you want to do that, you can. Thanks again, everybody, and good